The ballroom of the Montgomery Palace Hotel in Highland Park was filled with distinguished guests. Men in impeccable suits and women in designer dresses mingled among champagne flutes and calculated smiles. At the center of it all, Nathan Montgomery, at 53, received congratulations for the 25th anniversary of his hotel chain. His face showed satisfaction, but his eyes carried an emptiness that business success had never managed to fill. "Congratulations, Nathan. The Montgomery chain has become a symbol of excellence in the hotel industry," praised the mayor of Chicago, while shaking his hand with exaggerated enthusiasm. Nathan thanked him with a rehearsed smile. For 5 years, since Lauren had gone, he had perfected the art of appearing whole when, in fact, he was living half a life. He looked at the ring on his left hand, an antique piece of white gold with a blue sapphire, a family heirloom. That object was his last tangible link to the past, to Lauren. "Excuse me, I need to check on some details with the team," he said, moving away from the group of politicians and businessmen surrounding him. In truth, Nathan needed a few minutes away from that social theater. He walked to a more secluded balcony, where the cold Chicago night air greeted him like a relief. The city stretched before him, a concrete jungle illuminated, indifferent to the individual stories it housed. He took a deep breath. The event had been a success, but the celebration seemed empty without having someone to truly share it with. "Mr. Montgomery, your driver is already at the main entrance waiting for you," informed Roger, his personal assistant for over a decade. "Thank you, Roger. I'll be down in a moment." It was past 11 when Nathan finally decided he had fulfilled his social role. He descended in the private elevator and walked through the now almost empty lobby. The employees discreetly revered him. He was more than a boss. He was almost a living legend in the world of American hospitality. On the sidewalk, the Chicago winter night showed its harshest face. The cutting wind carried the promise of rain. His driver, Anthony, was already waiting with the door of the armored car open. It was at that moment, between the comfort of the hotel and the safety of his vehicle, that Nathan saw a small shadow moving near the ornamental plants. At first he thought it was just one of the many cats that inhabited Highland Park. But when the shadow moved toward the light, it revealed itself to be a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old. She wore a dirty and worn school uniform, and her dark hair was tangled. Her eyes, however, had a vividness that contrasted with her fragile appearance. The girl wasn't extending her hand in request as so many children did on the streets of Chicago. She merely observed, with an almost scientific curiosity. Nathan signaled for Anthony to wait and approached a few steps. The girl didn't back away. "Are you lost?" he asked, maintaining a respectful distance. The girl didn't respond immediately, her eyes fixed on Nathan's left hand, more specifically on the ring he wore. "Mommy has a ring just like yours," she finally said, with the naturalness of someone commenting on the weather. The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. He felt the blood freeze in his veins. That ring wasn't a common jewel available in any jewelry store. It was an exclusive piece, part of a set of only 3, custom-made for the Montgomery brothers in the late 19th century. One was with him. Another with his brother, who had disappeared under never-clarified circumstances, and the third should be with Lauren. "What's your mother's name?" he asked, trying to control the tremor in his voice. The girl hesitated, as if suddenly remembering some maternal warning about not talking to strangers. "I can't say," she replied, taking a step back. "That's okay, I understand. And what's your name?" After a few seconds of consideration, she answered, "Lily." "Lily," repeated Nathan, savoring the name. "Tell me more about your mother's ring. Did she say where she got it?" "She always wears it. Says she got it from someone special a long time ago." Each of the girl's words was like a puzzle piece fitting into a mosaic that Nathan didn't even know he was assembling. 5 years ago, when Lauren's car was found submerged in Lake Michigan, he had never fully accepted the idea that she was gone. There had been no goodbye, no signs that something was wrong. Simply, on a normal day, she went out to visit a friend and never returned. "Where do you live, Lily?" he asked, trying not to sound too anxious. She pointed vaguely southward. far from here, with Mommy and other people. And what are you doing here alone at this hour? I came to sell candy with my friend Peter, but he already left, she explained, showing a small box of gum that was almost empty. Now I'm going back. Nathan's mind was working frantically. This child could be the key to a mystery that had tormented him for half a decade, but he needed to be cautious. If his suspicions were correct, and the ring suggested they were, there were serious reasons why Lauren had disappeared, reasons that might still represent danger. Would you like a ride? He offered, but immediately realized the mistake. The girl's face closed, and she took another step back. Mommy said to never accept rides from strangers. Your mother is right, he quickly corrected himself. That was careless of me. Look, it's getting late and dangerous. Let me help you in another way. He took out his wallet and extended a few bills to Lily. For a taxi, or to help you and your mother. The girl looked suspiciously at the money, but ended up accepting it. Thank you, mister. Nathan, my name is Nathan Montgomery, he introduced. Himself, closely observing her reaction upon hearing his surname. No sign of recognition passed over the child's face. If Lauren was alive, and now he was almost certain of it, she had never mentioned his name to her daughter. Lily, would it be possible for us to meet again? I would very much like to meet your mother. The girl seemed to consider the proposal. Sometimes I come to sell candy around here after school. Tomorrow? Maybe. Lily put the money in her pocket and began to walk away. I need to go now. Nathan wanted to follow her, to discover where she lived, to confirm his suspicions immediately. But he knew he needed to be patient. If Lauren had built a new life away from him, she had her reasons. Approaching abruptly could push her away even more. Anthony. He called his driver when the girl disappeared around the corner. Cancel my appointments for tomorrow. All of them. Any problem, sir? Nathan looked at the ring on his hand, the blue sapphire reflecting the city lights. No, Anthony. For the first time in 5 years, I think we might have a solution. That night, in his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Nathan couldn't sleep. He rummaged through old boxes, found photographs of Lauren. In one of them, taken on the balcony of his beach house in Malibu, she displayed the ring identical to his, the same ring that, according to Lily, her mother wore every day. As day dawned over Chicago, Nathan made a decision. He would find Lauren, understand why she had pretended to leave, discover if Lily was his daughter, no matter how long it took or what obstacles he had to overcome. After 5 years living half a life, he finally had a reason to feel complete again. What he didn't know was that by pulling this loose thread from his past, a whole fabric of secrets would begin to unravel, and not all were ready to come to light. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The next morning, Nathan dispensed with the suit and tie. He wore jeans, a polo shirt, and a discreet cap, a simple but effective disguise for someone whose face frequently appeared in business magazines. With Anthony at the wheel of an ordinary car, not the usual armored Mercedes, he returned to Highland Park. For hours, he walked the streets near the hotel. He entered bakeries, talked to street vendors, building doormen, always discreetly showing a photo of Lily that he had managed to take the night before with his cell phone, without her noticing. Nobody seemed to know her. Perhaps we should try somewhere else, sir, suggested Anthony after the 6th frustrated attempt. She said she comes to sell candy here. We'll wait. The day advanced slowly. In the early afternoon, when Nathan was already considering changing strategy, he spotted Lily's small figure leaving a subway station. She wore the same school uniform as the day before, but had combed her hair. She carried a box of sweets and moved with the confidence of someone who knows the territory well. I'll follow her on foot, he told Anthony. Stay nearby with the car. He followed the girl at a distance, watching as she approached pedestrians with a rehearsed smile, offering her products. Most people walked right past, but occasionally someone would stop, buy a chocolate, or give her some coins. Lily had a system. She would work for about 15 minutes at each corner, then change locations. After almost an hour, he gathered the courage and approached her, pretending to be just another interested passerby. "Hi, Lily. Remember me? We met yesterday." The girl looked at him with surprise, then with a slight smile of recognition. "The ring man," she said. "That's right. How are you today?" "Good. Sold a lot." She proudly showed the now almost empty box. "Do you want to buy a chocolate?" Sure, Nathan bought all the remaining chocolates, paying much more than the asked price. "Do you come here every day?" "Almost every day. After school." "And where do you study?" Lily hesitated. "Franklin Elementary School. It's near home." "In which neighborhood?" "The Seal." Girl looked suspicious. "Why do you want to know?" Nathan realized he was being too direct. He changed tactics. "I'm sorry for being curious. It's just that I kept thinking about what you told me yesterday, about your mother's ring. You know, this ring is very special to me. It's been in my family for generations." Lily's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? Mom's is very old too. She never takes it off." "Did she ever tell you how she got that ring?" "She said she got it from someone she loved very much." Nathan felt his heart race. "Lily, can I ask you a personal question? Do you know your father?" The girl's expression closed. "No, Mommy says he's very far away." "I see." Nathan changed the subject again. "And what does your mother do? What's her job?" "She makes sweets, sells them at fairs. They're the best sweets in the world." The pride in Lily's voice was palpable. "I'm sure they are. Maybe someday I can try them." Nathan paused, considering his next move. "You know, Lily, I run a foundation that helps children. We offer scholarships, school supplies, that sort of thing. Do you think your mother would like to talk to me about that?" The girl pondered for a moment. "I don't know. Mom doesn't like talking to people she doesn't know." "Understandable. But maybe if you talk to her about me." "I can try," Lily replied, but her tone wasn't very convincing. Nathan realized he was pushing too hard. He took a step back. "Don't worry. If you want, we can meet again, maybe tomorrow, same time." Lily agreed with a nod of her head. She put the money she had received in an inner pocket of her uniform, and with a quick bye disappeared among the hurried pedestrians. Nathan returned to the car where Anthony was waiting. "Shall we follow her, sir?" "No, she would notice, but I noted the name of the school. It's a start." The next morning, Nathan sent 2 of his private investigators to research Franklin Elementary School. He discovered it was in Springfield, not Chicago, as he had initially imagined. The information opened a new range of possibilities. Lauren and Springfield, the connection seemed unlikely, but not impossible. During the following days, he established a routine. He would meet Lily after school, always buying all of her products and chatting for a few minutes. With each encounter, the girl seemed more at ease. She told him about her friends at school, about the subjects she liked, about the small apartment where she lived with her mother. She mentioned that they used to live in a community shelter, but had managed to rent a place just for themselves a little over a year ago. Meanwhile, the investigators worked. They found records of a woman named Rachel Smith, who had enrolled in a confectionery course in Springfield 5 years ago. The age matched, and so did the physical description. There was little information beyond that. No photo, no record. Prior to her arrival in the city, just an address in a peripheral neighborhood. "We need to verify in person," decided Nathan. On a rainy Wednesday, he headed to Springfield with Anthony. He stayed in a simple hotel using a fake name and drove to the address the investigators had found. It was a small housing complex built for low-income families. The exterior walls were peeling, and there were clothes hanging from the narrow windows. From inside the car, he observed the movement of the place for hours. He saw children playing on the sidewalk, workers returning home, neighbors chatting. Late in the afternoon, his heart almost stopped when he spotted Lily arriving from school. She quickly entered the building. Nathan waited, holding his breath. 20 minutes later, a woman left the same building, carrying a wicker basket. She wore a simple dress and had her hair tied in a bun. Even at a distance, even with her modified appearance, he recognized her immediately. "Lauren," he whispered, feeling a wave of contradictory emotions: relief, anger, confusion, joy. Anthony, who had also known Lauren years ago, confirmed, "It's her, sir. I have no doubts." They watched as she walked to a small nearby square and set up an improvised stand. From the basket, she removed boxes with handmade sweets and small handmade posters. There was something hypnotic about the way she moved, with an elegant confidence that not even the hardships had managed to erase. Nathan considered approaching her immediately, confronting her, demanding explanations, but something held him back. If Lauren had forged her own departure, built a new identity, distanced herself from everything she knew, including him, she must have had powerful reasons. Approaching her abruptly could be counterproductive, perhaps even dangerous. "Let's go back to the hotel," he told Anthony. "I need to think." During the night, Nathan barely managed to sleep. The pieces were starting to fit together, but there were still many gaps. Why had Lauren simulated her departure? What threatened her to the point of abandoning her entire previous life? And most importantly, why had she never trusted him enough to ask for help? The next morning, he returned to the square. From a distance, he observed Lauren, now Rachel, selling her sweets. She smiled at customers, explained the flavors, carefully wrapped the purchases. Occasionally, she looked at her watch, probably concerned about Lily's school dismissal time. A group of 3 women stopped at her stand. They chatted animatedly with her, like old friends. One of them commented about a social worker who would visit the housing complex the following week. The information caught Nathan's interest. When Lauren closed her stand and returned home, he headed to a nearby bakery. Chatting casually with the attendant, he discovered more about the social program that served the region. There was a community center a few blocks away, where volunteers offered courses, basic medical care, and legal assistance to needy families. That afternoon, Nathan visited the center. He introduced himself as a businessman interested in financing social projects, which wasn't a lie. He met the coordinator, an energetic lady named Mrs. Zimmerman, who received him enthusiastically. "We have more than 100 registered families," she explained, "most in vulnerable situations. Do you keep records of these families? Of course, we need to document everything to account to public agencies." With a generous donation, Nathan gained access to the archives. He found Rachel Smith and Lily's file. There was little information. They arrived in Springfield 5 years ago, initially welcomed in a temporary shelter. Rachel claimed to be a widow without an extended family. She worked as a self-employed confectioner. Lily was enrolled in school with good grades. The social worker had noted that both seemed well adapted, but that Rachel was extremely reserved about her past. There was a detail that caught Nathan's attention, an observation about a scar on Rachel's right arm, the result of a domestic accident. Lauren had exactly the same scar, acquired during a vacation trip when she broke a crystal vase. That final confirmation both calmed and disturbed Nathan simultaneously. There were no more doubts. Rachel Smith was Lauren Montgomery. His wife hadn't left, she had fled. And Lily, by her age and the coincidence of dates, was almost certainly his daughter. The mystery now was different. What had happened 5 years ago to force Lauren into this radical choice? And, more importantly, would it be safe for them if he reappeared in their lives now? Returning to the hotel, Nathan received a call from his office in Chicago. His assistant seemed nervous. "Mr. Montgomery, someone was here asking about you. A man who wouldn't identify himself. When I informed him that you were traveling, he specifically asked if you were in Springfield." Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. What did this man look like? Tall, graying hair, a small scar near his right eye. He seemed very interested in your recent movements. The description was familiar. Terribly familiar. "Stephen Davis," muttered Nathan, recalling his former business partner, the man with whom he had severed commercial relations 6 years ago when he discovered irregularities in his business dealings. Suddenly, the pieces began to fit together more clearly. Stephen, his shady businesses, Lauren's disappearance. There was a connection. And if that connection existed, it meant that the danger that had forced Lauren to flee might still be present. "I'm returning to Chicago immediately," he informed his assistant. Meanwhile, reinforce the security at the office, and don't mention to anyone where I've been." Before leaving, Nathan passed by the housing complex again. From a distance, he saw Lily playing with other children in the small common area. She laughed, carefree, oblivious to the whirlwind forming around her. Through a second-floor window, he briefly glimpsed Lauren's profile. "I'll protect you," he promised silently. "This time I won't fail." Back in Chicago, Nathan initiated a thorough investigation into Stephen Davis. He convened a confidential meeting with George Miller, his head of security, and Helen Vasquez, a trusted lawyer who had been with him since the beginning of his career. "I need to know everything about Stephen in the last 5 years. Financial movements, companies, travels, absolutely everything," instructed Nathan while pouring himself a glass of whiskey. The office on the top floor of the Montgomery Group headquarters building offered a panoramic view of Chicago, but Nathan barely noticed the landscape. His thoughts were in Springfield, with Lauren and Lily. "Is Stephen Davis involved in Lauren's disappearance?" asked Helen, adjusting her thin-framed glasses. "I suspect so. And if I'm right, we need to act with extreme caution." George, a former FBI agent with more than 30 years of experience, nodded gravely. "I'll mobilize my team, but I need to better understand the context, Mr. Montgomery." Nathan took a deep breath. It was time to share what he had discovered. "Lauren is alive. She lives in Springfield under the name Rachel Smith, with our daughter Lily." The shock on George and Helen's faces was visible. How did you discover this?" stammered Helen. Nathan narrated the encounter with Lily, the mention of the ring, the subsequent investigations. He told them about his trip to Springfield and how he identified Lauren, now living a modest life as a confectioner. "What intrigues me is the connection with Stephen," he concluded. "You remember that we ended our partnership in the Florida Keys, a resort project, when I discovered he was using the enterprise for illegal operations." "I remember well," confirmed Helen. "We discovered money laundering schemes. You wanted to report him to the authorities." "But I ended up not doing so," completed Nathan with bitterness. "Stephen had powerful connections. I thought it more prudent to simply distance myself, dissolve the partnership, and go my own way." "And you think Lauren discovered something more serious? Something that forced her to flee?" "It's the only explanation that makes sense." In the days that followed, George's team worked tirelessly. Meanwhile, Nathan maintained his apparent routine, attending meetings and social events, as if nothing extraordinary was happening. He continued visiting Springfield periodically, always observing Lauren and Lily from a distance, never approaching. During one of these visits, he followed Lauren to a farmer's market, where she set up her sweet stand every Thursday. He kept his distance, hat and sunglasses as a disguise. He observed how she interacted with customers, gentle but always alert, her eyes constantly scanning the surroundings, as if fearing being recognized. When the market began to disperse, late in the afternoon, Nathan saw something that accelerated his heart. Lauren hastily packed her belongings and, firmly holding Lily's hand, practically ran away. Something or someone had frightened her. Discreetly, he followed them until he realized they were entering a community shelter, not the housing complex where they lived. The place, run by a local church, welcomed people in vulnerable situations. Why would Lauren seek refuge there when she had an apartment? Nathan waited outside for almost 2 hours. When Lauren and Lily finally left, it was already night. They walked quickly through the poorly lit streets, always looking back until they reached the housing complex. The next day, Nathan sought out the priest responsible for the shelter. He introduced himself as a philanthropist interested in making donations. During the conversation, he casually mentioned that he had met a confectioner named Rachel at the market. "Ah, Rachel. An admirable woman," commented the priest. "She helps us a lot with food donations for needy families." "I noticed she was here yesterday," risked Nathan. The priest hesitated briefly. "Yes, she sometimes uses our phone. Hers was cut off due to lack of payment." The explanation seemed plausible, but Nathan intuited there was more. He substantially increased the value of his donation and, during the tour of the shelter facilities, managed a few minutes alone in the administrative Room. Quickly, he checked the recent telephone records. He identified a call made at the time Lauren had been there, to a Chicago number he didn't recognize. Back at the hotel, he passed the information to George, who promised to investigate the number immediately. It was Helen who brought the first significant discoveries about Stephen. They met in Nathan's office, shielded against eavesdropping. Stephen not only continued with the suspicious businesses, but expanded them, she informed, spreading documents on the table. He created a network of shell companies to hide illicit transactions. The Florida Keys resort was just the beginning. We found something else, added George. That number Lauren called, it belongs to a private clinic in Chicago, specializing in cancer treatment. Cancer, repeated Nathan, confused. Is Lauren sick? I don't think it's for her, replied George. When I called, pretending to be from the insurance company, I asked about the Smith patient. The receptionist mentioned the older lady. I suspect it's Lauren's mother, Celeste. Nathan nodded slowly. Celeste had been diagnosed with cancer shortly before Lauren's disappearance. At the time, she had begun treatment at a reputable clinic. So Lauren maintains contact with her mother, he concluded. Yes, but with extreme care. Apparently, she rarely visits in person, communicating mainly by phone, always from different locations. Another piece of the puzzle fit into place. Lauren's disappearance didn't mean she had cut all ties with her past, only that she kept them under strict secrecy. The following week, Nathan received a phone call from George. His voice was tense. Sir, we found something at the shelter in Springfield, a letter. What letter? A letter written by Lauren, addressed to you. It was never sent. It was hidden among the personal belongings she keeps stored there. How did you gain access to this? One of the shelter volunteers works for us. When we mentioned Rachel, he remembered that she keeps a sealed box in the storage room with express instructions that no one open it. And you opened it. It wasn't a question but a statement. Yes, sir, we thought it might contain crucial information. Nathan felt a mix of anxiety and guilt. He was invading Lauren's privacy, but he needed to understand what had happened. Bring me that letter immediately. Hours later in his apartment, Nathan held a yellowed envelope. Inside, several sheets of paper covered by Lauren's elegant and familiar handwriting. The date at the top indicated it had been written 3 months after her disappearance. Dear Nathan, the letter began, if this letter ever reaches you, I probably won't be here anymore to explain in person. There's so much I need to tell you, so much I should have said before. Forgive me for the silence, for the escape, for all the nights you spent without answers. I never wanted to abandon our life together. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but there was no alternative. Weeks before what you believe to have been an accident, I found documents in Stephen's office. Papers that proved not only the money laundering you already suspected, but something much worse. He was using the company structure for international operations involving dangerous people. I confronted him, naively believing I could convince him to stop. It was a terrible mistake. Stephen threatened me. He said that if I told you or anyone else, not only I but everyone I love would be at risk. He mentioned your mother, my parents, even children we might have. At first I thought it was just intimidation, but then I began to notice I was being followed. In the same week I discovered I was pregnant. Our baby, Nathan, our much-desired miracle had finally happened at the worst possible moment. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't put our child in danger. With the help of a friend, I planned my disappearance. The accident in the lake was meticulously staged. I changed my appearance, my name, my story. I changed everything, except the love I feel for you. And the ring. I know it was reckless to keep it, but I couldn't part with this last connection. To you, to our history. Stephen believes I'm really out of the picture. As long as it remains so, you and our daughter are safe. Please understand that I did this to protect you, not to abandon you. Our daughter's name is Lily. She has your eyes, your stubborn smile. Sometimes I tell stories about a brave prince who lives in a distant castle. Stories about you, about the wonderful man who is her father, but whom she cannot meet. Not yet. I don't know when it will be safe to return, if it ever will be. Stephen has powerful connections, eyes and ears in many places. If you're reading this, please be cautious. For you, for Lily, for all that we can still be. With eternal love, Lauren. Nathan read the letter 3 times, each word penetrating deeper. Silent tears streamed down his face as the pieces finally fit together. The pain, the anger, the understanding, all mixed in a whirlwind of emotions. Lauren hadn't abandoned him. She had sacrificed herself to protect him, to protect their daughter, a daughter he didn't even know existed until a few days ago. That night, he made a decision. It wasn't enough to observe from a distance. It wasn't enough to investigate. He needed to act against Stephen, against the danger he represented. He needed to create a safe path for Lauren and Lily to return to his life. But first, he needed to talk to Lauren, confirm that the letter still represented reality. Know if, after 5 years, she still loved him as he had never stopped loving her. The next morning, he returned to Springfield with a plan. He wouldn't approach Lauren at home or at the market, where he might frighten or expose her. He would wait for the right moment, an encounter that seemed casual, away from curious eyes. The opportunity arose when he saw her enter a small bookstore in the city center. Nathan waited a few minutes and then entered. Lauren was in the children's book section, leafing through an illustrated story, probably for Lily. She didn't immediately notice his presence. He approached slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. When he was just a few steps away, she looked up. The recognition was instantaneous. First surprise, then panic. The book slipped from her hands, falling with a dull thud on the wooden floor. "It can't be," she whispered, the color draining from her face. "Lauren," said Nathan softly. Or should I say, Rachel? She looked quickly around like a cornered animal seeking an escape route. How did you find me?" "Through Lily, our daughter, Lauren. Our daughter who has your eyes, and, as you yourself wrote, my stubborn smile." The shock on her face was replaced by understanding. "The letter. You found the letter." "Yes, and now we need to talk. Really, talk." The silence in the small cafe away from downtown Springfield was almost palpable. Nathan and Lauren sat at a table in the back, away from the windows, 2 untouched cups of coffee between them. The place was practically empty at that hour of the afternoon, exactly what they needed for a conversation that was 5 years overdue. Lauren seemed nervous, her fingers restlessly smoothing the edge of the table, her eyes constantly checking. The entrance. She was thinner than Nathan remembered, with lines of worry marking her face that hadn't existed before. But even so, she still radiated the same silent strength that had always captivated him. "Are we safe here?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. "My security team is outside. No one followed us." Lauren nodded, but the tension in her shoulders didn't diminish. "You shouldn't have come, Nathan. It's dangerous." 5 years, Lauren. 5 years believing you were gone, discovering that you were alive, that we have a daughter. Did you really expect me to stay away?" She looked away, fixing her gaze on the coffee cup. "I hoped you would never find out, that you would go on with your life, that you would be safe." Her voice was almost a whisper. "That Lily would be safe." "And you? How much longer would you live in hiding? How much longer would you run?" "As long as necessary." The answer, simple and direct, hit Nathan like a physical blow. Lauren's determination to protect her daughter, to protect him, went beyond anything he could imagine. "Read your letter," he said, softening his tone. "I understand why you did what you did, but things have changed. We can face Stephen together now." Lauren raised her eyes, a mix of hope and skepticism in her gaze. "How?" "He has powerful connections, Nathan. People who would do anything for him. At the time, I tried to gather evidence against him, but it was impossible without exposing myself. I have a team investigating. We've already found evidence of his illicit operations, suspicious transactions, shell companies. With more time, we can build a solid case." "Time is exactly what we don't have," she countered. "You don't understand. If Stephen discovers that you found me, That you know about Lily." She didn't complete the sentence, but she didn't need to. The fear in her eyes said it all. "Why didn't you reach out to me before?" asked Nathan, unable to contain the hurt. In his voice, "Why didn't you trust me to protect you both?" It wasn't a matter of trust, it was about safety. Stephen made it clear that he was watching me, watching you. He said he had people inside your company, people close by. I didn't know who to trust. And now, do you trust me now? Lauren reached her hand across the table, lightly touching Nathan's fingers, the first physical contact between them in 5 years. "I always trusted you. I never stopped loving you. I just was afraid. Still am." Nathan turned his palm up, interlacing his fingers with hers. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." For the next 2 hours, Lauren narrated her story, how she had found incriminating documents in Stephen's office during a charity event at the company headquarters, how initially she thought it was just tax irregularities, until she realized the extent of the operation, an international money laundering network that involved politicians, businessmen, and even a federal judge. "I was naive to confront him directly," she admitted. "I thought I could convince him to stop, to turn himself in. I was only a few weeks pregnant, hadn't even told you yet. I wanted to resolve that before, so as not to worry you." "What did he do?" "At first, he tried to buy me off, offered money, a lot of money, for me to keep quiet. When I refused, the threats began. Subtle at first, then explicit. One day, I found photographs in my purse, you leaving the office, my mother at the treatment clinic, the 2 of us at home. The message was clear. He could reach us whenever he wanted." Nathan felt a wave of anger course through his body. "Why didn't you report him to the police?" "With what evidence? He made sure there was nothing concrete. Besides, I suspected he had contacts within the police. It would be my word against his, a respected businessman with powerful connections. So you decided to disappear." "It was the only way out I found. Rebecca, my college friend, helped me. She worked at a shelter for women victims of violence, knew the protocols for cases like this. We created a plan, staged the accident. She helped me with new documents." "And Lily?" "She was born 6 months later, in a small clinic in Champaign under another name. Then we moved to Springfield. Rebecca visited us occasionally, brought news of you, even some photos. It was she who told me how devastated you were, how you never fully accepted my departure." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. So many years lost, so much suffering that could have been avoided. "And now?" he asked, squeezing her hand. "What do we do now?" Before Lauren could answer, her cell phone vibrated. It was a text message. Her face paled as she read it. "It's Rebecca. Stephen was at the shelter in Chicago, asking about me. Someone must have noticed your investigations." Nathan felt his blood freeze. "We need to act quickly. Where is Lily now?" "At school. She gets out at 4. I'll send Anthony to pick her up. He's absolutely trustworthy." "No," protested Lauren. "She doesn't." "No, Anthony. She would be frightened." "Then we'll go together. Afterward, I'll take you both to a safe place while I resolve the situation with Stephen." Lauren hesitated, decades of fear and distrust weighing on her decision. "Trust me," insisted Nathan. "This time we'll face this together." After a moment, "That seemed like an eternity," she nodded. "But we need to be careful. If Stephen discovers that we're reunited, he won't find out. I have a plan." They left the cafe separately. Lauren went ahead, while Nathan waited a few minutes before heading to the car where George was waiting. "Any suspicious movement?" he asked. "Nothing so far, sir, but I received information from Chicago. Stephen has a trip scheduled to Springfield tomorrow." "Then we have little time. Follow that bus. Lauren is on it. We'll pick up Lily at school." During the journey, Nathan made several calls. To Helen, his lawyer, instructing her to accelerate the investigations into Stephen. To the manager of his private hotel in Aspen, ordering him to prepare the presidential suite with maximum discretion. To the head of security at his company, determining that protection be reinforced at all family properties, especially at the home of his mother-in-law, Celeste. When they arrived at the school, Lauren was already waiting at the gate. Together they waited for the children to exit. Nathan's heart raced when he spotted Lily running toward her mother, backpack swinging on her back, a luminous smile on her face. "Mommy!" she exclaimed, hugging Lauren around the waist. Then she noticed Nathan. "Hi, Ring Man. What are you doing?" "Here?" Lauren knelt down to be at her daughter's height. "Lily, this is a very special friend of Mommy's. We need to go with him today, okay?" The girl frowned, confused. "But what about our apartment and my things?" "We're going to take a little trip. It will be fun, I promise." Lily looked at Nathan, then at her mother, clearly perceiving that something unusual was happening. "Is it because of the scary man? The one you always told me to run from if I saw him?" Lauren and Nathan exchanged worried looks. "Yes, honey," Lauren finally answered. "It's because of him." "Did he do something bad?" "He isn't a good person, Lily, and we don't want him to find us." The girl nodded with surprising maturity. "Okay, but can I bring my teddy bear, Tim?" "Of course you can," replied Nathan, smiling to ease the tension. "In fact, I'm dying to meet this bear." They got into the car, George at the wheel, Anthony in another vehicle following as an escort. As they drove out of the city, Nathan observed Lily through the rearview mirror. She looked out the window, absorbing the sudden change in her routine with the adaptability typical of children. Every now and then she asked questions, where they were going, how long they would stay there, if there would be other children to play with. "Aspen," replied Nathan. "It's a beautiful place with mountains and lots of greenery. I have a house there with a library full of children's books." Lily's eyes lit up. "I like books. Mommy reads me stories every night." "I know you do. I saw you and your mother at the bookstore the other day." Lily looked at him with renewed curiosity. "You saw us? Why didn't you talk to us?" Nathan exchanged a quick look with Lauren before answering. "Sometimes adults need to resolve some things before they can properly talk to each other." "Complicated things?" asked Lily. "Yes, complicated things." "Like when Peter broke my colored pencil and was too embarrassed to apologize?" Nathan smiled. "Something like that, but a little more complicated." When they arrived in Aspen, it was already night. Nathan's house, an elegant European-style chalet, was illuminated and welcoming. Discreet staff received them, without asking. Questions about the unexpected arrival of the boss with two strangers. Lily, despite the fatigue of the trip, was enchanted with the place. She explored the main room with its leather sofas and stone fireplace, examined with interest the collection of miniature antique cars that Nathan kept in a display case, and finally stopped in front of the large panoramic window that offered a view of the valley below. "It looks like a fairy tale castle," she exclaimed. "And you can choose any room on the second floor," said Nathan. "They all have views of the mountains." While Lauren took Lily to get settled, Nathan received a phone call from Helen. "We did it," she announced without preamble. "We found the missing evidence. Banking documents, international transfers, even recordings of meetings. A former employee of Stevens decided to collaborate after learning we were investigating. How long until we can act? I'm finalizing the dossier to deliver to the authorities. With luck, we'll have an arrest warrant in 48 hours. Good work, Helen. Keep me informed." When he hung up, he found Lauren standing at the door, watching him. "Good news?" she asked. "The best. Soon Stephen will no longer be a threat." She approached, sitting beside him on the sofa. "I still can't believe we're here, that you found us, that you know about Lily. That we're together again," he completed, touching her face gently. "Are we?" "Together, I mean. If you want. If there's still room in your life for me." Lauren closed her eyes, leaning against his hand. There never stopped being room. Even on the hardest days, even when I believed we would never see each other again. You were always here. She touched her own heart. "And here." She pointed to Lily, who was now sleeping in the room above. Nathan pulled her into an embrace, feeling 5 years of pain and absence dissolve in the warmth of that contact. "We'll start over," he promised. "Build a new life, the three of us, together, without fear, without secrets." "Without Stephen," she added. "Without Stephen," he confirmed. But as he spoke, Nathan knew there was still one last confrontation to face. a reckoning that had been pending for a long time, and to ensure the definitive safety of his family, he needed to face it personally. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The morning in Aspen dawned shrouded in fog, a white blanket covering the mountains and giving the scenery an almost dreamlike quality. Nathan observed the landscape from the veranda, a forgotten cup of coffee in his hands. He hadn't slept well. Despite the good news from Helen, he knew that Stephen wouldn't fall easily. Men like him always had a contingency plan, an escape route. "You're up early." Lauren's voice pulled him from his thoughts. She approached, wrapped in a thick robe that he had provided the night before. "Old habits," he replied, offering a tired smile. "I was always the first one up." Some things never change. She joined him in contemplating the landscape, a comfortable silence establishing between them, the kind of silence that only exists between people who know each other deeply. "Is Lily still sleeping?" he asked finally. "Like a rock. I think the excitement of the trip tired her out." Nathan nodded, hesitating before the next question. "Will you tell her? About me, I mean." Lauren turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the complexity of the situation. "I think so. She deserves to know, but we need to go slowly, Nathan. For Lily, you're still the ring man, not her father." "I understand. We'll follow her pace." "What did Helen say exactly about Stephen?" Nathan put the cup on the side table before answering. "We have enough evidence to incriminate him for money laundering, tax evasion, and possibly obstruction of justice. The former employee who decided to collaborate, a certain Marcus Lewis, worked directly with Stephen's parallel accounting." "Marcus?" repeated Lauren, surprised. "He was a financial assistant when I still worked at the company, a discreet young man, always looking scared." "Well, now he's scared enough to collaborate. Apparently, Stephen threatened him recently, something related to records that should have been destroyed." "And now, what's the next step?" "Helen is gathering everything in a dossier to deliver to the FBI. With luck, we'll have an arrest warrant in 2 days at most." Lauren didn't seem entirely convinced. And if he finds out before, if he flees? The question hung in the air for a few moments. It was a real possibility, one that Nathan had considered during his sleepless night. "I won't allow that to happen." The determined tone in his voice made Lauren frown. "What are you planning, Nathan?" Before he could answer, his cell phone vibrated. It was George. "Mr. Montgomery, we have a problem. Stephen cancelled his trip to Springfield. According to our informants, he's on his way to Chicago, returning from Washington. He seems agitated." "He knows," concluded Nathan, feeling his stomach sink. "Somehow, he discovered our investigations." "There's more," continued George. "We managed to intercept communications from him. He mentioned something about definitively solving the Montgomery problem. Keep everyone on maximum alert. Reinforce security at Celeste's house and the central office. And George." "Yes, sir?" "I'm returning to Chicago. I need you to prepare everything as we discussed." "Are you sure, sir? It's risky." "I am. It's time to end this." When he hung up, he found Lauren looking at him with a mixture of fear and determination. "You're going to confront him," she said. It wasn't a question. "I need to do it. It's the only way to ensure he no longer represents a threat." "It's too dangerous, Nathan. This man has no scruples. If he realizes he's cornered..." "I have a plan, and this time I have concrete evidence against him." Lauren approached, holding his face between her hands. "I just found you again. I can't lose you." Nathan covered her hands with his. "You won't, I promise." They stayed like that for a few moments, until they were interrupted by small steps. Coming down the stairs, Lily appeared still in pajamas, her hair disheveled and her eyes sleepy. "Good morning," she said, yawning. "Is there hot chocolate?" The moment of tension dissipated with the child's presence. Lauren forced a smile. "Of course there is, honey. Let's prepare some for you." While Lauren took Lily to the kitchen, Nathan made another call. To Helen, his lawyer. "We need to accelerate everything. Stephen knows we're after him." "How did he find out?" It doesn't matter now. What matters is that he's returning to Chicago, and we need to be ready. The dossier is almost complete. I can deliver it to the FBI today, but the legal procedures may take longer than we have. Then we'll have to force him to make a mistake, make him reveal his intentions in a way he can't deny later. How do you intend to do that? I'm going to meet him personally. Nathan, that's insane. It's the only way, Helen. He wants to eliminate me. Let him try, but this time I'll be prepared. After breakfast, Nathan called Lauren for a private conversation in the house's office. I need you and Lily to stay here. It's the safest place right now. And you? Where are you going? Back to Chicago. I'm going to resolve this situation, once and for all. Let the authorities handle it, Nathan, please. The authorities will do their part. But first, I need to ensure that Stephen doesn't escape, that he doesn't have a chance to use his connections to get away unpunished again. Lauren studied him for a long moment. You're hiding something from me. What do you really intend to do? Nathan sighed. He couldn't lie to her, not after everything they'd been through. I'm going to meet him, make him confess. I have a plan to record him admitting everything, the threats against you, the illegal businesses, everything. It's a suicidal plan. He will never speak openly, and if he suspects what you intend, I have something he desperately wants, something that will make him lower his guard. What? The original evidence you found 5 years ago, the documents that led him to threaten you. Lauren paled. How did you know? Rebecca, we talked yesterday, while you were helping Lily get settled. She told me that you had kept copies, hidden as insurance in case something went wrong. They're in the shelter in Chicago, in a safe that Rebecca manages. I've already arranged for them to be retrieved. George is on his way there now. Lauren seemed torn between admiration and terror. Even with those documents, it's too risky to confront him directly. I won't be alone. Helen will be monitoring everything with federal agents ready to intervene. It will be a trap, Lauren, and Stephen will fall into it. She hugged him tightly, as if she could keep him there just with the strength of her arms. Promise, you'll come back to us. I promise. Before leaving, Nathan spent a few moments with Lily. She showed him drawings she had made that morning, a house in the mountains, 3 figures holding hands. This is you, she explained, pointing to the tallest male figure. And this is Mommy and me. It's a beautiful drawing, Lily. When are you coming back? The innocent question almost broke his resolve. Soon, very soon. Will we stay here? I like this place. If you want, we can stay, or we can go somewhere else. I have a beach house too. Her eyes widened. At the beach? With seashells and everything? With seashells and everything? She smiled, satisfied, with the promise. Nathan hugged her, feeling an overwhelming emotion as he realized all that he had lost, and all that he could still have. On the journey back to Chicago, he rethought every detail of his plan. The meeting with Stephen was scheduled for that night in his private office. George had installed discreet recording equipment. Helen would be in an adjacent room, monitoring everything, with an FBI team ready to intervene at the right moment. The risk was calculated, but real. Stephen was unpredictable, especially when cornered. But the alternative, continuing to live, under the shadow of his threats, allowing Lauren and Lily to remain hidden, was unacceptable. When he arrived in Chicago, it was already late afternoon. The city pulsated in its usual frenetic rhythm, oblivious to the drama that would unfold in a few hours. Nathan went straight to his apartment, where George awaited him with the documents recovered from the shelter. Everything's ready, sir. The recording system has been tested. The FBI team is discreetly positioned in the building next door, with a direct view of your office. And Helen. She's already on her way. She'll be in the conference room, monitoring everything. Great. And what about Stephen? He confirmed the meeting for 9. He seemed anxious. He must be. He's losing control of the situation, and men like him don't handle that well. The following hours passed in a blur of final preparations. Nathan studied the documents that Lauren had preserved again, falsified contracts, records of international, transfers to accounts in tax havens, incriminating emails. It was a treasure trove of evidence that Stephen would certainly do anything to recover. At 8:30 at night, Nathan was already in his office. The place had been meticulously prepared. Hidden microphones at strategic points, discreet cameras installed in seemingly harmless objects. Helen and 2 federal agents occupied the adjacent conference room, monitoring everything through a secure connection. "Remember," instructed Helen through the nearly invisible communicator in his ear, "we need him to explicitly admit the threats against Lauren and the knowledge about the illegal businesses. Without that, he can claim it was a setup." Understood. At 9 o'clock sharp, the receptionist announced the arrival of Stephen Davis. Nathan felt a wave of adrenaline course through his body, but maintained a neutral expression. It was time for the final confrontation. Stephen entered with the characteristic confidence of someone accustomed to dominating any environment. Tall, perfectly trimmed graying hair, impeccable Italian suit. The small scar near his right eye, the result of a car accident years ago, was the only detail that broke his polished appearance. "Nathan," he greeted, extending his hand. "What a surprise to receive your invitation. I thought we weren't speaking anymore." Nathan shook the offered hand, feeling repulsion at touching the man who had caused so much suffering to his family. "Exceptional circumstances require exceptional measures, Stephen. Please have a seat." The other man obeyed, crossing his legs with studied elegance. "So to what do I owe the honor? Your assistant mentioned something about a business proposal." "In a way, that's right," replied Nathan, opening a drawer in his desk. "I have something that I believe is of interest to you." Slowly, he placed a red folder on the table, the same one that Lauren had hidden 5 years ago, containing the evidence against Stephen. The visitor's smile faltered for an instant, his eyes fixed on the folder. "And what would that be?" "You know exactly what it is, Stephen. The question, as how much is it worth to you?" The confrontation had begun. The silence that settled in the office was dense, almost palpable. Stephen stared fixedly at the red folder, his hands slightly trembling, a subtle detail that didn't escape Nathan's attentive observation. "I don't know what you're talking about," he finally replied, trying to maintain his composure. "What documents would those be?" Nathan smiled slightly, recognizing the desperate attempt to deny the obvious. "The same documents that Lauren found 5 years ago, Stephen. The same ones that led her to disappear, to forge her departure, to abandon everything she knew." The mention of Lauren's name provoked a visible reaction. Stephen straightened in his chair, his face hardening. "Lauren, your wife, departed in a tragic accident, if I'm not mistaken. We both know it wasn't an accident, just as we know she's alive." Stephen let out a forced laugh. "You're delusional, Nathan. Grief has affected your mind more than I imagined. You know what's interesting about guilt, Stephen? It makes us make mistakes, like visiting a shelter in Chicago, asking about a woman who officially no longer exists." The fake smile disappeared from the visitor's face. "You've been watching me, just as you watched me for years, just as you watched Lauren before threatening her." Stephen abandoned the facade, his eyes now cold and calculating. "What exactly do you want, Nathan?" "The truth. I want to hear from you why you threatened my wife, why you forced her to disappear, why you deprived me of knowing my daughter. For 5 years." "Daughter?" repeated Stephen, genuinely surprised. "She was pregnant?" "Yes, something you apparently didn't know. Another detail that escaped your meticulous control." Stephen ran his hand through his graying hair, visibly disturbed by this new information. "Look, Nathan, perhaps we started off on the wrong foot here. We can discuss this in a civilized manner." "I'm being perfectly civilized. Considering what you did, I'd say I'm even being generous." Nathan opened the folder, revealing the documents organized in sections. Falsified contracts, records of international transfers, compromising communications. Do you know what happens when the FBI receives these documents? When the prosecutor's office analyzes the evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, coercion, and obstruction of justice? Stephen's face paled. "These documents don't prove anything. They're just speculations, misinterpretations of legitimate transactions." "Perhaps. but added to the testimony of Marcus Lewis, your former financial assistant, and the recordings he providentially preserved, well, let's say the picture becomes quite clear. The mention of Marcus made Stephen abruptly stand up. That miserable traitor. I gave him everything, trust, money, opportunities, and this is how he repays me. No, Stephen. You used him, just as you used everyone around you. The difference is that he finally realized the game. Stephen began to pace around the office like a caged animal. Nathan remained seated, observing every movement, every expression. How much? Stephen suddenly asked. How much do you want for those documents and for Marcus's silence? Do you really think this is about money? It's always about money, Nathan. Every man has his price. Mine isn't calculated in dollars, it's calculated in years. 5 years that I lost with my family because of you. Stephen stopped pacing, staring at Nathan with a mixture of desperation and anger. It was she who chose to run. I merely warned her about the consequences of her actions. If she had kept quiet, none of this would have happened. Ah, so you admit you threatened her? Stephen realized his mistake too late. It wasn't exactly a threat, it was a warning. Lauren was meddling in complex matters, things she didn't fully understand. Like the money laundering scheme you operated through the Florida Keys resort, like the connections with corrupt politicians, like the bribes to inspectors. Business is business, Nathan. You always knew that. There are gray areas, areas where financial creativity is necessary. Financial creativity, repeated Nathan, incredulous. Is that what you call financial crimes now? Look who's talking, retorted Stephen, pointing an accusing finger. How do you think your hotel empire grew so rapidly? With luck? Don't be hypocrite. The difference, Stephen, is that I built my business legitimately. I pay my taxes, I respect labor laws. I don't threaten innocent people. Stephen let out a bitter laugh. Innocent? Your wife invaded my office, rummaged through confidential documents, threatened to expose me. Because she discovered illegal activities. Any decent person would do the same. Decency doesn't build empires, Nathan. Pragmatism does. Stephen returned to the chair, apparently calmer, more calculating. Let's be practical. What do you really want? Revenge? Justice? Or just your family back? All of that. And the guarantee that you will never again represent a threat to us. And how do you suggest we do that? Nathan leaned forward, his eyes fixed on those of his adversary. You have 2 options. First, confess everything to the authorities, return the diverted money, accept the legal consequences of your actions. In exchange, I can intercede for some clemency in your sentence. And the second option. There is no second option, Stephen, only even more severe consequences for trying to flee from justice. The other man was silent for a few moments, evaluating his situation. When he spoke again, his voice had a tone of defiance. And if I tell you I have a contingency plan? That if something happens to me, certain information will be automatically released? Information that could compromise people you love? Nathan maintained a neutral expression, but felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of information? Let's just say I know where your mother-in-law receives treatment. I know which schools your nephews attend. I even know where Lauren and your daughter were hiding until recently. The implicit threat made Nathan's blood boil, but he controlled his reaction. It was exactly what he expected, the last desperate resort of a cornered man. Interesting you mention that, Stephen, because you've just confessed not only knowledge about the whereabouts of a woman officially declared deceased, but also explicitly threatening my family. For the first time, Stephen seemed genuinely confused. What do you mean? Nathan smiled slightly. Say hello to the FBI. As if responding to a cue, the office door opened. Helen entered, accompanied by 3 federal agents in formal attire. Stephen Davis, announced the older agent, showing his identification. You're detained for investigation on suspicion of money laundering, tax evasion, coercion, and obstruction of justice. Stephen's face transformed into a mask of shock and betrayal. This is a trap. He brought me here under false pretenses. Everything you said in the last 20 minutes was recorded and witnessed. Helen explained coldly, "including your recent threats to the Montgomery family." As the agents handcuffed Stephen, Nathan remained seated, observing the end of a nightmare that had lasted 5 long years. "This isn't over, Nathan," hissed Stephen as he was led out. "I have resources, connections. I won't stay in prison for long." "Maybe not," agreed Nathan. "But you'll be marked forever. Every movement of yours will be monitored. Every contact investigated. Your era of operating in the shadows is over, Stephen." When the door closed, Helen turned to Nathan. "It was impeccable. We have everything recorded, documented, and witnessed. With this and the material evidence, he'll face solid charges." "And what about the contingencies he mentioned?" "We're already on it. The technical team is tracking his servers, emails, cloud accounts. If he prepared some kind of informational time bomb, we'll find it and deactivate it." Nathan nodded, feeling for the first time in days the weight being lifted from his shoulders. "Thank you, Helen, for everything." "Don't thank me yet. We have a lot of work ahead, but yes, the hardest part is over." That same night, Nathan returned to Aspen. When the car climbed the winding road that led to the chalet, he saw lights on and 2 figures on the veranda, Lauren and Lily, anxiously awaiting his return. The car had barely stopped, and Lily was already running toward him, still in pajamas despite the late hour. "You came back," she exclaimed, hugging his legs. "Mommy said you would come back today." Nathan lifted her in his arms, feeling a joy that barely fit in his chest. "I promised. I would come back soon, didn't I?" Lauren approached more slowly, her eyes seeking answers in his face. "It's done," he said simply. She released the breath she seemed to have been holding, and, finally, smiled, a genuine smile, without shadows of fear or concern for the first time in 5 years. The days that followed were of adjustments and new beginnings. While the case against Stephen advanced in the courts, Nathan, Lauren, and Lily began to build a new routine. Initially, they continued in Aspen, away from the spotlight and the public curiosity that would certainly arise when the story came to light. On a particularly sunny morning, as they had coffee on the veranda, Lauren touched on the subject that still hung between them. "I think it's time we tell Lily." Nathan nodded, feeling his heart race. "You're right. She deserves to know the truth." They called the girl who was playing in the garden with a puppy that Nathan had adopted for her days before, a rescued puppy that she had promptly named Max. "Lily, honey, we need to talk about something important," Lauren began, settling, her daughter between them on the large sofa in the living room. "Am I in trouble?" asked the girl, frowning. "No, my love, nothing like that," Lauren assured. "It's about family, about your father." Lily's eyes widened with renewed interest. "My father? What about him?" Lauren looked at Nathan, seeking support. He nodded. Encouragingly. "Remember when I used to tell stories about a prince who lived in a distant castle? A good and brave man who couldn't be with us, but who loved us very much?" Lily nodded. "Those stories were about a real person," continued Lauren. "About your father." "And where is he now?" asked Lily, her voice small and hopeful. Lauren held Nathan's hand before answering. "He's here, Lily. Nathan is your father." The girl looked at Nathan with wide eyes, processing the information. For a few moments, no one said anything. You're my dad?" she finally asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Yes, Lily," replied Nathan, emotion making it difficult to speak. "I'm your father." "Why did you never come visit us before?" The question, so direct and innocent, hit Nathan like an arrow. "Because I didn't know where you were, honey. I didn't even know you existed. If I had known, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you both." Lauren explained, in simple terms appropriate for Lily's age, that they had needed to stay separated for a time because of a man who wanted to do bad things. She told how Nathan had finally found them through the ring, and how now they could finally be a complete family. Lily absorbed everything with the surprising adaptability of children. She asked questions, many questions, about where Nathan lived, what he did if he had other children, if she could now have a room in the big house in Chicago, that he had mentioned once. At the end of the conversation, she looked seriously at both of them. "So should I call you Dad now?" she asked Nathan. "Only if you want to, Lily. We can take it slow." She considered for a moment, then smiled. "I think I can try." In the months that followed, life gradually found a new balance. Stephen was formally indicted and, confronted with irrefutable evidence, accepted a deal with the prosecution. He received a significant sentence, though reduced in exchange for information about others involved in his schemes. More importantly, his contingencies were neutralized. George's technical team located and deactivated all the automatic triggers he had prepared: programmed emails, cloud documents with timed access, instructions to associates. With the threat finally dissipated, Nathan, Lauren, and Lily could plan their future. They decided to divide their time between Chicago and the beach house in Malibu, which Lily adored from her first visit. The girl was enrolled in an excellent school, where she quickly made friends and stood out academically. Lauren, initially hesitant to resume her original identity, finally accepted Nathan's suggestion to return to using her real name. With his support, she transformed her talent for confectionery into a business of her own, a small but refined confectionery in Chicago, quickly recognized for the quality and originality of its creations. As for Nathan, he reorganized his priorities. He delegated more responsibilities in the company, reduced business trips, and dedicated himself to recovering the time lost with his family. With each of Lily's birthdays, each school achievement, each simple moment of family life, he felt grateful for the second chance that life had given them. On a Sunday afternoon, almost a year after the confrontation with Stephen, the family was walking on Malibu Beach. Lily ran ahead, chasing the waves that receded on the sand, while Nathan and Lauren walked hand in hand. "Do you ever wonder how it would have been," asked Lauren, observing their daughter, "if none of that had happened?" Nathan reflected for a moment. "Sometimes. But then I think that maybe we needed to go through all of this. Maybe the challenge made us stronger, more aware of what really matters." "What matters?" "This," he replied, squeezing her hand. "You, Lily, the love we built, lost, and found again." Lauren smiled, tilting her head to rest on his shoulder. "You know what's funny? The ring, that old family ring that I never took off, even when I should have gotten rid of any connection to the past. It was what brought us back together." "Some connections are too strong to be broken," philosophized Nathan. "Like true love." "Like true love," she agreed. Ahead, Lily waved enthusiastically, calling them to see a particularly beautiful shell she had found. They quickened their pace together, toward their daughter, toward the future they could finally share without fear. The ring on Lauren's left hand shone under the setting sun, no longer a symbol of a lost past, but of a reclaimed present and a future full of possibilities. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Nathan, Lauren, and little Lily has touched your hearts. To embark on more exciting journeys like this one, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. Find it here by clicking on the left side of the screen. If this story of love, separation, and reunion moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. Daily, we bring unique stories that explore the complexities of life and the bonds that unite us. Share in the comments which moment of the story touched you the most: the reunion at the hotel, the moment when Lily discovered